A lot of talk these days about Pittsburgh's dining scene, but the bar scene is buzzing too. Not just new trendy bars that have opened recently, but the no-frills, shot-in-a-beer neighborhood joints. Longtimers are loyal to these bars and to their bartenders. And the new February issue of Pittsburgh Magazine, associate editor and dining critic Cal Klein features 5 men and women who have made a career out of bartending. You may even know them. Welcome, Hal. I know a lot of attention has been given to these hip local places, but you kind of dig deeper into the places that we know, these gems.
Yeah, you know, when we thought about doing some bar stories for February, last year we did Best Bars, and it was a great mix of neighborhood bars and new bars, and I love all the USBG Bartender Guild bartenders, but we thought it was time to really give a tribute to the people that have been doing it for 20, 30, 40, 50 years in Pittsburgh.
And so I know you have this list of 5 folks. Who made the list and where do they work?
Yeah, so there are a bunch of people, and this is just a small representation, of course, of people all throughout the city. So we found this guy, Gus Aiello, who's at Rudy's Bar, who I thought his story was fascinating because he's owned the bar in McKees Rocks for nearly 50 years. But actually just started working behind the bar, and I mean, it's a great photo too.
Yes,
it's amazing.
Awesome.
You know, he really just started working behind the bar a couple years ago because as the dynamics of the neighborhood, the economics have changed, he hasn't been able to keep on staff in the same way. And so now he's working behind the bar, but he has, you know, talk about the gift of gab, right? I walked in there and he just started talking right away. He also makes this famous ham sandwich.
You had a ham sandwich and a beer, I'm sure, right?
So, yeah, so it's a great place. It's a great spot. MJ Fontana, who works at Dee's Cafe on the south side. So this is, you know, Carson Street as we know it now is this party street. It's all these bars, all this stuff. They opened in 1955. Were one of the first places. They had a restaurant license, so they used to be one of the only places open on Sundays. And MJ and there's another bartender there as well who have just seen it all. And it's amazing, you know, to sit down at a bar with someone and hear stories about how, you know, people drank in the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s. And so that was amazing. And then on the other, you know, on the other side of town, Jim Need over at Need's Cafe. Need's is a legendary spot. It's one of our best bars as well. And, you know, Jim grew up at the space. He's the 3rd generation bartender. His dad, Paul, ran the place. His dad, Paul, was there for over 70 years. Jim's been there since the 70s.
Great stuff, yeah.
And, you know, it's amazing just to talk. And again, talk about gift of gab, right? Jim, you can sit down and talk for hours and talk about how, you know, it used to be that the mill workers would come at 7 a.m. A lot of these bars open at 7 a.m.
Like Jack's on the south side.
Like Jack's on the south side, which is another bar that has bartenders that have been there for a really long time. And now it's nurses that get off their shift around the same time and come in. And, you know, he said it's really different now when they come in versus when the mill workers would come in and, you know, fall off the chairs or whatever.
Yeah, nurse probably isn't doing that. At least, maybe not, I don't know. Debbie Painter, too, and Fiona Simpson Savoy.
Yeah, Savoy, yeah. So Debbie is amazing. Debbie is a fixture at Tesaro's, and she actually had an injury a couple months ago. And the loyalty of her customers, so one, they would come in, and they would tell the other bartenders, well, make it like Debbie makes it, because they knew she knew how they liked their drinks. But then what happened was when they found out that she was out, people would prepare meals for her and send meals over to her house. And, you know, that loyalty really goes 2 ways. And then Fiona is amazing. So she's at Casbah, because I wanted to pick a bartender who also worked at a cocktail bar. She started at 18 years old at a pub in England and has had this life that has taken her to work as a flight attendant on airplanes. She came over, she was in New York, helped open Dish, and then now is, you know, teaching bartenders. And she actually, you know, one of the things that we talked about was it's hard work being behind the bar.
Oh, yeah.
So you're on your feet, you know, you're working strange hours, you're doing all this stuff. So how do you keep fit and healthy? And she talks a lot about going to yoga class, eating right, and things that you wouldn't think of when you were younger that suddenly, you know, you've got to like stretch and really be prepared, right?
So I want to also talk about this because you did another article for the February issue, and I thought this was just fascinating. In fact, I know this restaurant well, one of the restaurants featured in your Crossroads article.
Yeah, so I really thought a lot about the restaurant industry and how things are changing today and how things are booming. And one thing that's happening, and at the same time we're in the midst of this opioid crisis and there's a lot of stuff, and the restaurant industry is an industry that historically has been kind of home to people that party a lot, do a lot of things. And one thing that's happening now are people are really looking to think about health and think about the stuff. And there's all this need for workers. And so what's happening is you're finding a lot of people who are now working to recover from addiction or previously incarcerated are finding work in the restaurant industry and finding mentorship. So someone like Heather, who owns the Micro Diner and the other diner up in Allentown, her story is amazing. You know, she struggled with addiction. She was incarcerated, and at one point just decided she needed to turn her life around. And through the help of friends, through the help of support groups, opened up a place. I think it was in 2012 that she opened Micro Diner. And now not only is she someone that has really turned her life around, but she's employing people that come through halfway houses, such as Renewal Incorporated. And then there's a place called Community Kitchen Pittsburgh, which is actually working with previously incarcerated people. They come in, it's a 12-week course, and they work with people not just on teaching them culinary skills, which is really important, but also giving them coping mechanisms for life, coping mechanisms for addictions, ways to navigate, and then help them find careers and work. So we've got people in Buford's Kitchen, Ace Hotel, the Richard DeChance Restaurant Group, which has a ton of restaurants, is working with people. And it was really amazing to talk to people who were in such despair and such depths and struggling and found a purpose. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Hal. And we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but there's a really great Q&A in that article as well. So if you want to read it, please make sure to pick up the February issue of Pittsburgh Magazine. Read more about these stories and others, again, in the February issue on newsstands and online now.